Hello and welcome back to Doctor Who, the cancelled years. In this video, we'll be covering season 35 of Doctor Who. So, let's get started. Season 35 would have been the third season for Hugh Bonneville as the Doctor, the last season for Beverly Cressman as Abigail Norwood, the fourth season for Keith Barnthorpe as executive producer, the first season for Lynn Grant as producer, and the fifth season for Colin Brick as script editor. Between seasons, a few things were changed to the programme. Firstly, producer Stephen Garwood stepped down to go work on EastEnders. Filling in the gap of producer would be former production manager Lynn Grant. Secondly, the format to the stories received a major update. Now, instead of 22 stories with 25 minutes in length, there were now 12 stories with 45 minutes in length. Now there would be 5 two-parters and 2 one-parter. Also, the aspect ratio of the show was updated. Now the show would be made in 16:9 instead of 4:3. However, it was broadcast in 14:9, though on DVD releases and future reruns, they would be available in 16:9. Because of this, the titles were tweaked and cropped to be in 16:9, though again broadcast in 14:9. And now, let's get to the episodes. The first episode would have been The Apocalypse Element, written by Stephen Cole. This story would have saw the return of Gallifrey, as well as the return of the Daleks. This would have been one of the biggest stories in the show's history, as it would have saw the Daleks invading Gallifrey and attempting to destroy the galaxy in a massive story. It would have put the evil back into the Daleks and would have presented them as a force that seems impossible to fight against. It also would have had the same levels of excitement as Dalek Mania from the 1960s and 70s. Overall, this would have been viewed as one of the best stories from the Bonneville era. The second episode would have been Home Sweet Home, written by Gary Russell. This story would have been set entirely on board the TARDIS, and would have saw the Doctor and Abigail travelling through the corridors of the TARDIS. However, what they don't know is that something is living within the walls and is taking control of the TARDIS. The story would have saw the Doctor and Abigail getting lost in the TARDIS, as the corridors shift around them and the ship tries to kill them several times. It turns out that an intelligent space rat named Raleigh was trying to dispose of the Doctor and Abigail, so that he can take control of the ship and turn it into a hive for his own species. Eventually, however, the Doctor is able to capture Raleigh and trap him in a cage deep within the TARDIS. The third episode would have been Spare Parts, written by Mark Platt. This story would have been set on Mondat and would have acted as an origin story for the Cybermen. We would have saw how the Cybermen came to be, as well as their uprising. We also would have saw some of the horrors of early conversion, and it would have been a very dark story. Overall, this would have been considered one of the best Cybermen stories of all time. The fourth episode would have been Storm Warning, written by Alan Barnes. This would have been a pseudo-historical and would have covered the crash of the R101. The Doctor and Abigail arrived within the ballast tanks of the British airship R101 during its maiden voyage on the 5th of October 1930. However, the two of them soon get involved in a conspiracy aboard the ship, involving a race of aliens named the Triskel and the British government. It turns out that the mission of the R101 was to return the Triskel back to their people after one crash landed on Earth. As well as this, the Triskel wished to find a new lawgiver, who is essentially their leader of their people and the only one with free will. However, after the lawgiver is accidentally shot, the young creators, who were the destructive side of the Triskel, were able to break free and wreak havoc, using a British spy named Rathbone as their medium. However, Rathbone broke free of their control and shot the leader of the young creators, the young creator Prime, with the captain of the R101, Lord Tamworth, opting to stay with the Triskel in order to rebuild their society. A lot of the story would have saw the Doctor trying to make sure history stays on course and the R101 crashes, and in the end, the Doctor and Abigail themselves sort of end up being responsible for the crash. The 5th episode would have been Blink, written by Stephen Moffat. This would have been pretty much the same story as it is in our own universe. The only major difference would have been all the stuff involving the DVDs, which would instead be done on VHS tapes. The 6th episode would have been The Murder Game, written by Steve Lyons. This would have been a mix of an Agatha Christie murder mystery story, as well as a base under siege. The story would have started with the Doctor and Abigail on the Hotel Galaxies, Earth's first off-world tourist attraction, which has now been used for private events, in a murder mystery game event. However, all goes wrong as actual murder begins to occur. The villain turns out to be a race named the Celestians, who are trying to get their hands on a lethal computer program that can turn any existing computer system into a weapon against its assigned target. The story would have been quite popular with older fans of the show, mainly those of the Patrick Troughton era, as it plays similar to the Base Under Siege stories from his era. The final episode would have been Queen of the Galaxies, written by Colin Brake. This would have been the last story for Abigail Norwood. The story opens with the Doctor rescuing a man from space, who he finds to be Harkinson, the Prince of the Galaxies. The Doctor explains to Abigail that his family, the Galactic family, are the real family of England from the far future. Harkinson asks the Doctor to drop him off at the family planet, and notes on how Abigail looks almost identical to his sister, Catherall, the Princess of the Galaxies, who is soon to be crowned Queen. When the Doctor and Abigail meet the Galactic family, they find that Abigail and Catherall are exactly identical. As a thank you for rescuing Harkinson, the Doctor and Abigail are invited to dine with them. Abigail and Catherall get on very well. Catherall opens up to Abigail about how she doesn't want to be Queen just yet, and instead wants to travel the universe. So the two of them form a plan to swap places. So they go away for a minute, swap clothes and places, and return, with everyone believing Abigail to be Catherall, and vice versa. Eventually, the Doctor and Catherall leave, with the Doctor believing Catherall to be Abigail. The story would have mostly focused on Abigail, as she is crowned Queen of the Galaxies. However, all goes terribly wrong when her palace comes under attack by space terrorists, being led by Harkinson. He kidnaps Abigail and locks her away in a dungeon, and claims to the people of the galaxy that the Queen has died, and that he shall take over as king. When the Doctor learns about the Queen's death, Catherall is forced to reveal the truth about who she is, which enrages the Doctor. However, the two believe that she may not be dead, and that the king might just be a saboteur. The rest of the story would have saw the Doctor and Catherall tracking down Abigail's location and rescuing her, while being hunted down by the king's royal guards. Once Abigail is rescued, the three work together to expose Harkinson as a criminal who cheated his way into power. When the truth is out and he is exposed, he attempts to kill the rest of the family. However, he is killed by Catherall, with her losing her life during the fight. Everyone believes that it was Abigail who killed the king. However, the Doctor can tell the difference between the two now, and knows that it was Catherall who died. However, he doesn't say this to anyone, as he worries he would cause a mass panic if he was to reveal that the Queen was dead. The story would have ended with Abigail deciding to leave the Doctor to become Queen full time, as there is no one else to be Queen or King, and the people need a leader to pull them out of the darkness. The Doctor and Abigail say their final farewells before the Doctor leaves in the TARDIS. And that concludes season 35 of Doctor Who. A quite strong season, though obviously still with flaws. So join me next time for season 36. Until then, thank you for watching and goodbye.